Since the start of these regulations in 2022, one team has actually brought 3 different innovations that some teams copied, and they're actually pretty extreme to what they actually have been. Loopholes in the system 2 times now. Aston Martin has actually been pretty successful in making parts that no other teams have thought of. Well, that has just now happened for this Zandvoort Grand Prix. But I want to go over the 3 innovations that I am talking about specifically. Then I want to go over a little bit more in depth about the upgrades and why every other team will look to copy this innovation that has been made as of right now. So 3 innovations. Well, in 2022, we know they had a horrible car in the beginning, and I mean awful. The AMR22, the A version, was a beautiful car, but a bad car. But it did have the bib tray, the T tray that we all call, that every car now practically runs on it. And what is this? It provided another way of distributing the air in a better fashion on the underfloor. And no other team actually innovated it up until Aston Martin. They showed it in their showcase, and from showing it to their showcase, Red Bull puts it on, Mercedes puts it on, Ferrari puts it on, and every other team kind of follows after that. So already making a mark on their innovations. Well, in 22, for their AMRB, we come into Hungary and they put on the actual stools to the rear wing, making it look like a chair, and something that we saw in the 2021 to 2017 and even earlier than that regulations very much being used. Well, this was illegal for the fact that the actual stools, or really the armchairs that they put on, were illegal against the regulations, but they did it in a way to where it was a loophole by actually curving it and not technically connecting it to the upper plane. This was very smart from them. They actually used this wing practically 24/7 after introducing it because it was such a good innovation at the time. It helped the car's rear end stability that they were actually able to be super well on their tires. But not only that, actually get the most out of the car on tracks that had a lot of downforce. And that is actually where the AMR kind of sparked up. Singapore was a great track for them last year, and that's where they scored their most points. But even Koto was a great track, and they were able to go through sectors 1 and 3 stupidly fast because they had so much downforce. On a track with a lot of straights, they were still very successful. So the AMR learned from that. And now what did they introduce? They introduced something to the back of the car, which as of right now, recording, has actually failed its first test. Well, why did it fail its first test, the little mini wing? It's a little mini wing on the crash structure, really where the brake light is. And what it does is it actually distributes the airflow to go in an upward wash through the diffuser. It's a way of adding a little bit of downforce. It doesn't do anything that drastic, but when you look at F1 cars, when you look at the upgrades that come in, it's not about one upgrade, but it's about all of them combined in the bigger picture. Well, they just upgraded their diffuser, and this is technically classified as a diffuser upgrade and made it legal by the FIA. But what ends up happening, they go for a pit stop and snap. Because it's in such a position to where that's where the rear jack goes, and it will hit it and snap it. So how do they fix this? Well, I'll go more into depth about it in a little bit. But I wanted to go over the upgrades. Let's go over everything that they brought here to Zandvoort. I already covered it in the video, but I want to go more into depth because I've seen more pictures and more to describe. Last time we saw their underfloor, it was pretty simple. Now looking at it from this picture, you can catch some things. You can see where the rake is, you can see the actual crash structure and the diffuser wing that I'm talking about, but also the indents and kind of their introduction to slight steps in the underfloor. Now, this is nowhere to the extreme of the actual Red Bull, but you can actually see some indentations, them actually raising the floor and lowering it in certain spots, and it not being as simple as a Haas or a whatever floor. When we saw the floor actually in Spa, it looked a lot more simple, a lot more introductions to this floor, and a couple of steps actually being introduced in the parts that I'm pointing out. Other than that, they actually brought an upper floor upgrade, which shows that they've actually brought back that little undercut part under the side pod and lifted it from the edge, trying to lead that airflow to go more into, yet again, the upper part of the beam wing and floor, as you can see by the little part that has been put in, which was there before. Not much difference. The only thing they kind of added also, if you actually look at the very beginning of the floor, this is very much inspired off of Red Bull. I mean, the car kind of is, but yet again, it's their own thing. The way that that floor goes in and the way that they have it curved to actually bring in that undercut even more, they took that straight off the Red Bull handbook and they added that as well. I also wanted to thank you guys so much for the support on the latest videos and in general. You guys are amazing. I'm on my goal to 10,000, so subscribe and like, it would mean the world for me. Let's get back into the video. And lastly, they brought in the engine cover, which is also identical to the Red Bull. Very similar, distributing the airflow and kind of getting it to go more towards the beam wing. Now, it's not as lowered as it used to be. It's done in a different fashion. They don't have that shark fin, so I guess they didn't need the extra engine cooling. But what ends up happening, we go into free practice 1 and Lance Stroll has an engine problem and they're already looking to a new gearbox for Alonso. So, I mean, let's see. But I think they're pretty confident with their engine. It's been a very solid car. No DNFs or problems for Alonso as of right now. Hopefully I didn't just jinx it like I did for Ricardo in my last video. But regardless of that, Alonso has been good and the engine has been good. So they didn't need that extra air cooling and they kind of just made this more efficient in the way that it's leading the air to the beam wing. Last thing I want to talk about to cover this video is why I believe every team will actually copy this. This little diffuser thing. The little diffuser thing that I'm talking about is this little wing that I mentioned earlier. This little wing itself does a lot for the car in a small way, if that makes a lot of sense. It does a good thing as to adding downforce points, but it also does a good job of leading the air to go higher. That crash structure in the car doesn't do anything for the car. But now adding a little wing to it, you are dictating the air to go up instead of it kind of just going nowhere. It's another form of downforce, but how are they going to get it on the car? This is what I mentioned. Well, this is it. It broke off the car because it wasn't actually attached by screws, but now they will attach it to the screws that you actually see on that real brake light. They'll use those screws, get it more into there, and make it a harder piece onto the car, kind of forming it to the rear jack. As you can see, it has a little bit of an outer edge to it too, that make a little bit of outwash on the sides, but also so the rear jack can go in and it will not break on the car, because they see this as a way to actually promote more downforce and outwash for the car. So I think every team will see how they do that. They probably saw the break and they're like, I don't know if this is the right actual call, but every other team will see that. They'll see this as downforce points and something that is efficient towards the car, because Dan Falos has actually been doing a great job over here at the Aston Martin squad. And who is he the prodigy of? Adrian Newey, the guy that's been killing it with the RB19 and Red Bull for all these years. They've always been downforce kings and have been great on slow and medium speed corners, which is what the Aston Martin is great at right now. They need to improve upon their high speed a little bit more, but regardless, the guy is learning from the genius and picking up on new innovations and loopholes for the car, which I find very awesome and a good thing for our sport, but also for Aston Martin. That's it for me. Thank you guys so much. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.